Emily had always been enchanted by stories of Arabian fairy tales. Tales of golden deserts, magical palaces, and
This
love so
view is
powerful it could
incredible.
defy
Not as
fate.
incredible as you.
Incredible
I
as
love
you.
moments like
She
this.
never imagined that her own life in New York City could feel like a storybook, or that a dream so vivid could soon unravel into a nightmare. Born and raised in a quiet suburb of New Jersey, Emily grew up reading tales of princesses and princes, of daring adventures across faraway lands. She imagined herself swept away by romance, the kind of love that transformed ordinary lives into extraordinary adventures. Her chance arrived one crisp autumn evening. She was attending a charity gala in Manhattan, the skyline glittering through the tall windows, lights reflecting like jewels on the river. That's when she met Omar. He was striking, tall with dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to see into the very corners of her soul. His accent was smooth, his smile charming, and his words carefully chosen, each one building a world she wanted to inhabit. They spoke of literature, of art, of dreams that stretched beyond the city's skyscrapers. It was effortless, like two puzzle pieces snapping together. Within weeks, Omar swept Emily off her feet. They visited rooftop bars overlooking Times Square, attended exclusive gallery openings, and dined at restaurants that served dishes she had only seen in glossy magazines. Omar's life was a mirror of her fantasies, luxurious, mysterious, and exhilarating. He brought gifts that seemed to materialize out of a dream, a silk scarf embroidered with golden threads, rare books from distant countries, a delicate necklace that glimmered like moonlight. Friends whispered that Emily had found her prince, and for a while it felt true. Then came the proposal on a chilly December evening. Atop the Rockefeller Center observation deck, Omar knelt before her with a ring that sparkled like starlight. Emily's heart raced as snow began to fall gently around them. Soft and silent like magic itself, she said yes, tears mingling with laughter. Convinced that her fairy tale was only beginning, the wedding plans unfolded like a storybook, a lavish Manhattan ceremony. Roses cascading like waterfalls, lights twinkling as if the city itself were celebrating their love. For a moment it all seemed perfect, but beneath the glamour, subtle shadows began to form. Omar, once charming and attentive, started displaying small unspoken expectations. He questioned her choices, how she dressed, which friends she spent time with, even the hours she spent at work. At first, Emily dismissed it as concern, interpreting it through the lens of love. Yet a quiet unease began to settle in her chest, a whisper she couldn't ignore. The fantasy she had chased so eagerly was showing the first signs of cracks, and Emily, lost in the intoxication of romance and luxury, didn't notice the storm that was quietly brewing. The fairy tale was alive, yes, but even fairy tales have dark chapters, and Emily's was only beginning. The first few months of Emily's marriage were a delicate balancing act. Between love and unease at first, she convinced herself that Omar's intensity was part of his charm, a sign that he cared deeply. But slowly the charm began to feel like a cage. It started suddenly questions about her friends, casual remarks about how she dressed, gentle suggestions that she spend less time at work and more time at home. Each instant seemed small, almost insignificant. She told herself she was overreacting. After all, this was the man she loved, the man who had promised her a fairy tale. Then the small signs escalated. Omar began calling incessantly when she was out, demanding updates on her every move. He critiqued her choices with a sharpness that caught her off guard, his words dripping with authority disguised as concern. A dinner with friends became a test. Every laugh she shared, every story she told was dissected. Afterward, Emily started noticing how quickly the sparkle of their lavish apartment lost its warmth. The penthouse felt less like a home and more like a gilded cage. Her independence, once a source of pride, began to erode. Omar's mood swings were unpredictable. A slight disagreement would trigger silent treatments, or veiled criticisms, leaving Emily anxious and second-guessing herself. She noticed the subtle ways he controlled the household, deciding what groceries to buy, what guests to invite, and even the decor of their space. Her world was shrinking under the weight of expectations she had not signed up for. Emily tried to speak up, to reason with him, but each attempt was met with frustration or anger. Omar painted her concerns as oversensitivity or ingratitude. The love that had once made her feel secure now made her doubt herself. She found herself walking on eggshells, careful not to provoke his temper. Nights that had once been filled with laughter now ended in intense silences. The city lights outside mocking her anxiety. Social media, once a joyous outlet, became another arena for conflict. Omar insisted she limit her posts, suddenly monitoring who commented and who liked her photos. The bright world she had loved, the city's cafes, galleries, and parks, now felt like a stage where every move was scrutinized. Friends began noticing her quietness, but Emily brushed off their concerns. Shame and fear tangled with love, and she clung to the fantasy of a perfect marriage. Even as it slowly slipped away, it was during one particularly cold December evening, as snow fell silently over the streets of Manhattan, that Emily realized the extent of her isolation. She sat in their high-rise apartment, the glow of city lights spilling across the floor, and understood that her fairy tale had mutated. What had started as magical and thrilling now felt suffocating, an intricate web of control wrapped in luxury and charm. The life she had dreamed of, romantic, glamorous, enchanting, had begun to twist into a nightmare. And yet amidst the fear and confusion, a small flicker of clarity emerged. Emily knew that surviving this would require strategy, patience, and courage. The true test of her fairy tale was beginning, not in dreams or romance, but in reality. By the time Emily reached the 9th month of her marriage, the enchantment of her fairy tale had fully faded. The luxurious penthouse that had once felt like a dream now felt like a prison, its glittering chandeliers casting shadows over the walls, where secrets and fears lived. Omar's control had intensified. His moods were volatile, and his attention, once flattering, now felt invasive. Every word she spoke, every movement she made seemed to be under his microscopic scrutiny. Emily felt like a character trapped in someone else's story, powerless, yet painfully aware of the cracks in his carefully constructed persona. She realized that relying on love or reasoning would not save her. She needed a plan quietly. She began documenting everything: texts, emails, subtle threats, and patterns of control. Each note was a lifeline, evidence that she might one day need to reclaim her freedom. Late at night, after Omar had fallen asleep, she would sit in the dim glow of the kitchen light, typing on her laptop, her fingers trembling, as she recorded every incident with meticulous detail. She couldn't risk discovery. One wrong click or a forgotten document could unleash his fury. Emily also began reaching out cautiously. She called lawyers anonymously, spoke with shelters and support services, and confided only in her closest friend. Through encrypted messages, trust was scarce and paranoia had become a constant companion. She learned to hide her fear behind smiles and nods during the day, maintaining the illusion of compliance, while her mind strategized every possible route to freedom. Each encounter, each routine was measured. Every step was deliberate, calculated for safety despite the fear. Emily found moments of unexpected clarity. She would walk along the river, the reflection of skyscrapers shimmering on the water, and let the city remind her of life outside Omar's control. These small moments of solitude were essential, the only time she could breathe freely in these quiet intervals. She discovered a resilience she hadn't known she possessed. Her body might have been trapped in a penthouse, but her mind, her will, and her determination remained untouchable. Emily began small tests, leaving her phone unattended for brief moments, slipping out to nearby shops. Gauging Omar's reaction, each trial built her confidence, confirming what she already suspected. Survival depended on strategy, patience, and secrecy. She learned to read him, to anticipate moods, to speak only when necessary. Fear was no longer paralyzing. It became a tool sharpening her instincts, fueling her resolve. By the end of the month, Emily had a detailed plan. She would gather evidence, secure a safe house, and enlist discreet help for transportation. Each step was fraught with danger, but she no longer believed that magic or romance would protect her. The fairy tale she had longed for was gone, replaced by a reality where courage, wit, and stealth were the only keys to survival. As she prepared for what might be the most critical night of her life, Emily felt a strange mixture of fear and empowerment. The nightmare had tested her, and in its shadow she had discovered her strength. Her story was no longer about love or luxury. It was about survival, freedom, and reclaiming a life that had been taken from her. The first chapter of her escape was about to begin, and for the first time in months, Emily felt like she might actually win. The night of her escape arrived quietly, almost inconspicuously, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Rain fell steadily over Manhattan, drumming against the windows of the penthouse and blurring the lights of the streets below. Emily had waited for months for this moment, meticulously planning every step, timing every movement. She had packed a small bag with essentials, closed documents, evidence of Omar's controlling behavior, and her laptop. Each item represented her independence, her safety, and her determination to reclaim the life that had been stolen. From her, she waited until Omar had fallen asleep, the steady rhythm of his breathing echoing through the apartment. Like a countdown heart-pounding, Emily moved silently, careful to avoid any creaking floorboards or loose tiles. Her bag was ready by the door, her phone fully charged and connected to a trusted friend. Waiting for confirmation, every instinct screamed caution. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind. But now that it was happening, the adrenaline made every second feel stretched, suspended between fear and hope. Outside, the rain masked the sound of her footsteps. As she descended the quiet stairwell and slipped into a waiting car, the driver, a friend she had contacted weeks earlier, kept the engine running, eyes alert to every shadow. The streets were unusually deserted, the city's usual chaos softened by the storm. As the car pulled away from the apartment, Emily felt a strange mix of exhilaration and terror. Each mile that carried her farther from Omar's control brought relief, yet the weight of the months she had endured pressed heavily on her chest. Arriving at the safe house, Emily finally allowed herself to breathe. The space was modest, but it was hers, private, secure and free from scrutiny. She unpacked slowly, her movements deliberate, as if touching her belongings could anchor her to this new reality. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of peace. Fragile but real, she could hear the city outside. Indifferent and alive, but here in this quiet room, she was invisible and safe. Emily's thoughts drifted back over the months of her marriage. The illusions, the charm, the controlling grip that had transformed her fairy tale into a nightmare. She realized that the glamour, the luxury, and the romantic gestures had been nothing but a carefully constructed trap. Her dreams of an enchanting life had been replaced by a harsh, urgent reality, but in surviving, she had discovered a strength she had never known. Her fear had honed her instincts, her isolation had forged her resilience, and her careful planning had ensured her escape. Sitting by the window, watching the rain wash over the city, Emily felt the first genuine sense of freedom in months. She vowed never to allow herself to be blinded by appearances again. Her fairy tale may have ended, but she now had her own story, one of survival, courage, and self-determination. The city outside glittered, indifferent as always, but for Emily, every light reflected a new beginning. The nightmare had ended, and in its place, she had reclaimed her life stronger. Wiser and unbroken, the story of her escape would remain her secret, a testament to the courage that comes not from magic or romance, but from the human will to survive and reclaim one's freedom. Emily had walked through darkness and emerged into light. The fairy tale was gone, but she was finally free.